Welcome back to Under Baobab Skies. Tonight, we delve into why you wouldn't last a day in ancient Axum, and more. Nestled high in the rugged highlands of what is now northern Ethiopia, the kingdom of Axum emerged from the granite soil like the obelisks that still pierce the sky today. It was a realm of thin air and deep history, where the wind carried both the aroma of freshly ground teff and the distant calls of traders echoing from the Red Sea coast. Here, life was shaped by a marriage of extremes: unforgiving mountains that tested the body, and a wealth of cultural brilliance that nourished the soul. The world knew Axum as a land of gold, ivory, incense, and intellect. But for those who dwelled beneath its granite shadows, the days could be long, the work relentless, and the rewards fragile. Farmers rose before dawn to coax life from rocky terraces. Merchants measured wealth in spices and silver coins, bearing the faces of their kings. Priests chanted beneath carved, steely, their voices blending with the bustle of markets and the low rumble of caravans bound for distant lands. Let's pause here for a moment. The fire crackles softly, and we rest beneath the stars. To understand Axum is to step into a crossroads of civilizations. The kingdom's harbors opened to Arabia, India, and beyond, while its highland heart remained firmly African. Shaped by ancient traditions and the steady rhythm of seasonal rains, kings rose in granite palaces. But the empire's strength rested on the backs of its people, tillers of the soil, sailors of the Red Sea, builders of stone monuments that have outlasted their names. Let's pause here for a moment. The fire crackles softly, and we rest beneath the stars. In tonight's journey, we will walk the rocky paths of Axum's farmers, whose survival hinged on the stubborn hope of planting in poor soil. We will meet King Azana, the warrior-turned-Christian ruler whose reign altered the course of African history. We will stand before the towering obelisks that guard the past, pondering whether they were sacred markers or monuments to royal ego. And we will step inside the court of a merchant prince, savoring the spices and weighing the deals that linked Axum to half the known world. You are now under Baobab Skies, and the story begins now. As the first light of dawn breaks over the Ethiopian highlands, mist curls between jagged mountain peaks, revealing terraces carved into the slopes. Farmers in white cotton shama robes emerge from their homes, tools in hand, ready to face another day of coaxing life from the unyielding earth. In the distance, the silhouettes of ancient obelisks stand sentinel, silent witnesses to centuries of human struggle and triumph. The air is thin here, each breath a reminder of the altitude that both protects and challenges the people of Axum. As the sun climbs higher, it illuminates a landscape that seems to defy time itself, a place where the present is always in conversation with the past. The wind carries the faint aroma of coffee beans and incense, hinting at the riches that have long drawn traders to this remote corner of Africa. In the markets below, life begins to stir. Merchants unfurl bright cloths, displaying their wares: frankincense from the coastal lowlands, ivory carved into delicate figurines, and coins that have passed through countless hands on their journey from distant mints. The air fills with a cacophony of languages: Ge'ez, Greek, Arabic, a testament to Axum's role as a hub of international trade. Let's pause here for a moment. The fire crackles softly, and we rest beneath the stars. As we descend towards the Red Sea coast, the landscape changes dramatically. Waves break against ancient stone quays, where ships from Arabia and India unload their exotic cargoes. Merchants in layered cotton tunics haggle over sacks of frankincense, their voices rising and falling like the tide. In the hands of a skilled trader, carved coins glint in the sunlight, each one a tiny work of art bearing the likeness of an Axumite king. But life in Axum was not solely defined by commerce. In the shadow of towering stelae, priests and scholars debated philosophy and faith. The kingdom's conversion to Christianity under King Azana marked a pivotal moment, intertwining spiritual and political power in ways that would shape the region for centuries to come. As night falls over the highlands, the bustle of day gives way to a different rhythm. In humble homes and grand palaces alike, families gather around fires to share meals of injera and wat. Their conversations a mix of daily concerns and age-old stories. The stars emerge, impossibly bright in the thin mountain air, a celestial tapestry that has guided travelers and inspired poets since time immemorial. You are now under baobab skies, where the past is never truly past, and every stone holds a story. As we journey through the realm of ancient Axum, remember that history is not just a collection of grand events, but the accumulated experiences of countless lives, each one as rich and complex as our own. The fire flickers, casting long shadows, and the night air carries the whisper of ancient voices. Our tale continues as the sun dips below the horizon, casting long shadows across the Ethiopian highlands. We gather round the flickering flames of our campfire. The night air carries a chill, and the stars begin to twinkle overhead. Tonight, we delve into a tale of struggle and perseverance, a story of those who tilled the stubborn soil of ancient Axum. By the time our fire burns low, you will understand why the life of an Axumite farmer was as much a battle against the land as it was against the demands of kings, nobles, and the unpredictable sky. Picture, if you will, the rugged landscape of the Ethiopian highlands. These mountains were both a blessing and a curse to those who called them home. They provided natural defenses against invaders, pockets of rich volcanic soil nestled in valleys, and streams that flowed with life-giving water during the rainy seasons. But these same mountains were unyielding in their nature, strewn with rocks, their slopes steep and unforgiving, reluctant to surrender their bounty without exacting a toll of sweat and toil. Imagine a barefoot farmer, his skin weathered by sun and wind, guiding a pair of long-horned oxen across a terraced field. The wooden plough they pull scrapes against the earth, occasionally striking hidden stones with a jarring thud. For most, iron-tipped ploughs were a luxury beyond reach. Each furrow carved into the thin soil was a hard-won victory, a testament to human determination in the face of nature's resistance. Let's pause here for a moment. The fire crackles softly, and we rest beneath the stars. The rhythm of life for these ancient farmers was dictated by the Kirimt, the summer monsoon that brought life-giving rains to the parched highlands. But the Kirimt was a fickle master. Some years, it arrived with generous downpours that soaked the terraces and filled reservoirs to brimming. Other times, the rains came too late or too little, leaving crops to wither under an unrelenting sun. In those years, when drought stalked the land, famine crept across the highlands like a slow, insidious shadow. Fields that once promised abundance now yielded only dust and withered stalks. Yet, even as crops failed and livestock grew thin, the empire's demands remained unyielding. The king's tribute collectors showed no mercy, for the machinery of state ground on, heedless of individual hardship. Can you see it? Dark clouds gathering over Axumite terraces, promising rain, but often delivering only disappointment. A woman in a white shamma, the traditional cloth wrap, struggles up a hillside path with a heavy clay water jar. In the distance, hills that should be lush and green are turning brown, a stark reminder of nature's caprice. Let's pause here for a moment. The fire crackles softly, and we rest beneath the stars. Even in years when the rains fell in abundance, the work of an Axumite farmer knew no end. Each planting season began with the back-breaking labor of clearing stones from the fields. These weren't mere pebbles, but hefty rocks that had to be hauled away, often repurposed to build and reinforce the terrace walls that transformed steep hillsides into arable land. Women played a crucial role in this agrarian society. Picture them gathered on a flat stone courtyard, wooden sticks rising and falling in a steady rhythm as they threshed teff, the tiny grain that was a staple of the Axumite diet. The monotonous beat of their work forms a counterpoint to the shouts of children, tasked with guarding small flocks of goats and sheep from the ever-present threat of hyenas and other predators. For some families, the dry season brought its own challenges and separations. Fathers might leave their homes for weeks or months, drafted into service on royal building projects or joining trade caravans that ventured into distant lands. In their absence, the burden of managing the fields fell to the women and children left behind, adding yet another layer of responsibility to their already demanding lives. Let's pause here for a moment. The fire crackles softly, and we rest beneath the stars. The Axumite farmers' connection to the land went beyond mere sustenance. They were bound to the very lifeblood of the empire through a complex system of tribute and taxation. The fruits of their labor fed armies on campaign, filled the kitchens of nobles and kings, and fueled the construction of monumental works that would stand as testaments to Axum's greatness for millennia to come. Grain harvested from countless small plots made its way into royal storehouses. Livestock raised on rocky hillsides ended up on the tables of the elite. But perhaps most demanding of all was the labor. Weeks of unpaid work that pulled farmers away from their own fields at crucial times in the agricultural cycle. Imagine the toll of such service. Days spent hauling massive stones for the construction of steely domes, towering obelisks that still inspire awe today, or weeks of back-breaking labor to build and maintain the roads that connected the far-flung corners of the empire. For those who lived near the capital, there was always another palace to be built, another monument to be raised to the glory of the king. Refusal to meet these obligations was not an option. The consequences could be severe. Land seized, families relocated to even harsher terrain, where survival became an even greater struggle. The empire's needs were paramount, and individual hardship was of little concern to those who held power. Yet, despite these hardships, or perhaps because of them, the Axumite farmers persevered. They carved a living from the unyielding earth, their efforts shaping the landscape in ways still visible today. The terraces they built, the crops they cultivated, the traditions they passed down through generations. All of these formed the foundation upon which one of Africa's great civilizations was built. As our fire burns low and the night deepens around us, we're left to ponder the resilience of those ancient tillers of the soil. Their lives were hard, their labors often thankless, but their legacy endures. In the face of nature's caprice and the demands of empire, they found ways to not just survive, but to create a culture that would leave its mark on history. The stars wheel overhead, timeless witnesses to the struggles and triumphs of countless generations. And as we prepare to seek our own rest, we carry with us a deeper appreciation for those who came before, the farmers of ancient Axum, whose sweat and toil nourished an empire and shaped a land. Welcome back, fellow travelers through time. As we settle in for another segment of our journey, let's return to the ancient kingdom of Axum, where the weight of an empire rested on the shoulders of its farmers. The fire crackles softly, and we rest beneath the stars, ready to delve deeper into the lives of those who tilled the soil in this highland realm. If farming in Axum was hard work, feeding an empire with that same harvest was a near impossible balancing act. Picture a farmer's field, no more than a small patch of terraced hillside carved into the rugged landscape. This modest plot of land supported more than just the family who worked it. It was one thread in a vast web, a supply chain that fed soldiers marching to distant battles, priests tending to the spiritual needs of the people, merchants plying their trade along the Red Sea routes, and even the stonemasons painstakingly carving Axum's towering obelisks. Many farmers grew teff, that tiny grain unique to the Ethiopian highlands, alongside hardier crops like barley and wheat. Pulses such as lentils and chickpeas rounded out their fields, providing essential protein to supplement their diet. These were hardy plants, able to endure the thin mountain soil and withstand the cool highland nights. But the yield was always uncertain, hanging by a thread as precarious as the terraces themselves. Imagine, if you will, a farmer standing at the edge of his field, scanning the horizon with worried eyes. In the distance, a dark cloud appears, but it's not rain that's coming. It's a swarm of locusts, descending upon the valley like a biblical plague. The air fills with the sound of countless wings, and in mere moments, every green leaf in their path is stripped bare. Months of back-breaking labor vanish in the blink of an eye. Or picture a different scene. Heavy rains lashing against the mountainside, turning carefully constructed terraces into mudslides. The very earth seems to liquefy, and a farmer can only watch helplessly as his crops, his livelihood, his family's future, all wash downhill in a single, devastating afternoon. Let's pause here for a moment. The fire crackles softly, and we rest beneath the stars. In this harsh and unpredictable world, the storage of grain became a matter of survival. Farmers often built small, elevated granaries of wood and thatch, perched on stilts to keep rodents and moisture at bay. These structures dotted the landscape, silent sentinels guarding the precious harvest. But these reserves were tempting targets for thieves, both the desperate and the opportunistic. As night falls over an Axumite farmstead, shadows lengthen and the air grows cool. A wooden granary stands beside a humble home, its contents representing months of toil and the promise of survival through lean times. But look closer, and you might see figures moving in the moonlight, approaching with furtive steps. In the distance, a guard dog barks, sensing the intruders. Some of these nighttime visitors were common bandits, driven by hunger or greed. Others wore the uniforms of soldiers, requisitioning supplies for the royal army with the sharp end of a spear. Either way, a season's safety could vanish in a single night raid, leaving a family to face the long months ahead with empty stores and empty bellies. Let's pause here for a moment. The fire crackles softly, and we rest beneath the stars. Then there were the markets, a double-edged sword in the life of an Axumite farmer. Market day brought both relief and risk, a chance to turn surplus into security, but fraught with dangers of its own. For a farmer, it meant the opportunity to sell excess grain, filling his pockets with the copper and silver coins that bore the image of Axum's kings. It was a chance to barter for new tools, replacing a worn-out plough or acquiring a sharper sickle for the next harvest. Perhaps most importantly, the market offered access to that most precious of commodities, salt from the afar lowlands. This white gold was essential not just for flavoring food, but for preserving meat and trading with inland kingdoms. A successful market trip could mean the difference between merely surviving and actually thriving in the coming months. But the journey to market was no simple stroll down a country lane. It often meant carrying heavy loads over steep, winding trails that snaked through the highlands. A farmer might spend days on the road, sleeping under the stars and keeping a wary eye out for danger. Wild animals prowled these paths, leopards and hyenas that saw pack animals as easy prey. Human predators were an even greater threat, bandits lying in wait to ambush travelers laden with goods. And yet, despite these risks, farmers made these trips time and time again. They did so because the empire's very heartbeat depended on this flow of goods. Axum's kings might have minted coins in gold and silver, but their true wealth was measured in bushels of grain and heads of livestock that flowed steadily from the countryside into the city's vast storerooms. Without the farmers and their ceaseless toil, the great stele of Axum would not stand. Reaching towards the heavens in silent testimony to the kingdom's power, the churches, with their intricate carvings and colourful frescoes, would not rise to house the kingdom's growing Christian faith. And perhaps most critically, the bustling Red Sea trade that was Axum's lifeblood would falter and fail. For what use were exotic spices and fine silks, if there was no bread to fill the bellies of those who sailed the ships and guarded the caravans? As we sit here by our fire, gazing up at the same stars that watched over ancient Axum, let us take a moment to consider the immense weight that rested on the shoulders of these highland farmers. Their lives were a constant struggle against the elements, against pests and predators, both animal and human. Every seed they planted was an act of faith, every harvest a small miracle. Yet it was their labor, their persistence in the face of adversity, that allowed a great civilization to flourish. The coins that archaeologists unearth, the stone monuments that still stand today, all of these were made possible by countless unnamed men and women who coaxed life from the soil, season after season, year after year. As our fire burns low and the night deepens around us, we're left to ponder the true foundations of empires, not in gold or stone, but in the humble grains that sustained life, in the calloused hands that worked the earth, and in the indomitable spirit of those who persevered against all odds. The farmers of ancient Axum may not have lived lives of comfort or glory, but their legacy endures in every terraced hillside, in every granary that still dots the Ethiopian landscape. They were the unsung heroes of their time, the bedrock upon which a kingdom was built. And so, as we prepare to continue our journey through history, let's carry with us a newfound appreciation for those who feed empires, those whose daily struggles and small triumphs make all other achievements possible. For in understanding their lives, we gain a deeper insight into the true nature of civilization itself. In the rugged highlands of ancient Axum, where the earth meets the sky, a farmer's life was more than just tilling the soil and tending to crops. It was a delicate dance between the earthly and the divine, a constant negotiation with powers both seen and unseen. For these hardy souls, survival meant not only battling the whims of nature, but also navigating the complex web of obligations that bound them to both heaven and throne. Picture, if you will, the Axumite farmer standing in his terraced field, the cool mountain air filling his lungs as he surveys the land before him. His calloused hands grip a wooden hoe, a tool as old as agriculture itself, but his eyes are drawn upward to the vast expanse of sky above. For in that sky he sees not just clouds and sun, but the very face of the divine. The gods of old Axum, and later the Christian God, held sway over every aspect of the farmer's existence. They were the bringers of life-giving rain and the harbingers of devastating drought. Their favor could mean the difference between a bountiful harvest and a year of hunger. And so, the farmer's relationship with the divine was one of both reverence and fear, of supplication and gratitude. As the planting season approached, priests would emerge from their stone churches, clad in flowing white robes, adorned with vibrant red embroidery. These holy men would make their way through the terraced fields, their voices raised in prayer as they sprinkled blessed water upon the earth. The farmers and their families would watch with bated breath, hope kindling in their hearts that this sacred ritual would ensure a prosperous growing season. But the blessings of the divine did not come without a price. When the harvest was finally gathered, the priests would return, leading solemn processions through the fields. Sacred objects, passed down through generations, would be carried aloft as the community gave thanks for nature's bounty. And there, kneeling in the newly harvested fields, women would present baskets filled with the very grain they had worked so hard to cultivate. It was an offering, a gesture of gratitude, but also a reminder of the constant cycle of giving and receiving that defined their relationship with the heavens. Let us pause for a moment. Dear listener, can you hear the soft crackle of the fire beside us? Feel the cool night air on your skin as we rest beneath a canopy of stars. Take a deep breath and let the weight of centuries past settle around you like a cloak. Now, imagine the Axumite farmer looking down from his highland field toward the bustling city in the valley below. There, rising above the earthen houses and market stalls, looms the palace of the king. For in Axum, the monarch was more than just a ruler of men. He was a bridge between earth and sky, a semi-divine figure whose authority extended to the very rhythms of nature itself. The king's power reached into every corner of the realm, including the humble farmer's plot. Tribute was not merely a tax to be paid. It was a sacred duty, a tangible connection to the cosmic order that the king embodied. When the harvest was gathered, a portion would be set aside, not just for the local granary, but for the grand ambitions of the kingdom itself. Imagine caravans of donkeys, laden with sacks of grain, winding their way down from the terraced highlands. Some of this precious cargo might be destined to feed the workers toiling on massive royal building projects. The towering, steely, and grand palaces that would stand as testaments to Axum's glory for millennia to come. Other shipments might find their way to the coast, where they would provision armies preparing for campaigns of expansion, fueling Axum's growing power in the region. In this way, the farmer's labor became more than just a means of survival. It was the quiet engine that drove the ambitions of Axum's elite, the foundation upon which empires were built. With every swing of his hoe, with every seed planted and every stalk harvested, the farmer was participating in something far greater than himself, though he might never fully realize the extent of his contribution. Let us pause once more and tend to our fire, as the flames dance before us, casting flickering shadows on the ancient stones around us. Let your mind's eye conjure an image of the Axumite court. There, seated upon an intricately carved wooden throne, we see a young king. His eyes are bright with ambition, his posture regal despite his youth. Flanking him stand stern-faced guards, their spears glinting in the torchlight. And there, at the foot of the throne, lie baskets overflowing with golden grain, the tangible fruits of the farmer's labor, transformed into a symbol of royal power and divine favor. This scene, repeated countless times throughout Axum's long history, represents the culmination of a vast and intricate system. From the highest mountain terrace to the lowest valley, from the humblest farmer to the most exalted priest, all played their part in this grand tapestry of civilization. Yet, for all the weight of obligation and the harshness of their existence, we must not forget that there was pride too. in the hearts of Axum's farmers. Theirs was a land that had tamed the wild highlands, coaxing abundance from rocky soil and steep slopes. The massive stone monuments that still stand today, defying the passage of more than 1,000 years, owe their existence in no small part to the steady labor of those who worked the land. Every lavish feast in the royal palace, every ship that set sail laden with trade goods, every carved stone that reached toward the heavens, all of these marvels rested upon a foundation built by the calloused hands and aching backs of Axum's farmers. Their names may never have been recorded in the grand histories of the kingdom, but their legacy is etched into the very landscape itself. As the cool night deepens around us and our fire burns low, let us take a moment to reflect on these unsung heroes of history. The Axumite farmer, standing at the intersection of earth and sky, of mortal and divine, played a role far greater than he could have imagined. His story is one of hardship and perseverance, of duty and pride, of connection to powers both seen and unseen. Though the kingdom of Axum has long since faded into the mists of time, the echoes of those ancient farmers' labors still resonate through the ages. In every terrace cut into a mountainside, in every grain of teff that sprouts from Ethiopian soil, we can still hear the whispered stories of those who came before. Their sweat, their toil, their unwavering spirit. These are the true building blocks of civilization, the quiet force that has shaped our world in ways we are only beginning to understand. As we extinguish our fire and prepare to return to the present, let us carry with us the memory of the Axumite farmer. May we be inspired by his resilience, humbled by his devotion, and awed by the lasting impact of his seemingly simple life. For in his story we find a reflection of our own place in the grand tapestry of history, each of us playing our part, however small it may seem, in shaping the world that is yet to come. In the early 4th century, as the kingdom of Axum rose to prominence on the world stage, a young prince named Azana was born into a destiny that would shape the future of his realm. Axum's influence stretched far and wide, its ships plying the waters of the Red Sea, its merchants trading in precious commodities like gold, ivory, and fragrant incense. The kingdom's power was etched into the very landscape, with towering, steely reaching, skyward-like stone fingers grasping at the heavens. Yet, within the confines of the royal compound, Azana was but a child, unaware of the weighty crown that awaited him. The bustling capital of Axum was Azana's first classroom. But his teachers were not the rough-handed soldiers or cunning merchants who filled its streets. Instead, the young prince found himself surrounded by learned scribes and solemn priests, their voices a constant murmur of wisdom and tradition. Under their tutelage, Azana's mind blossomed like a desert flower after the rains. He learned to wield words as deftly as any sword, mastering the intricate script of GS for matters of state and the flowing lines of Greek to charm foreign dignitaries. The carved inscriptions that adorned the palace walls became more than mere decoration. They were living history, tales of triumph and conquest that Azana absorbed with eager eyes. King Ella Amida, Azana's father, watched his son's progress with a mixture of pride and urgency. The old king knew well the delicate balance of power that kept Axum strong, and he was determined to forge his heir into a ruler capable of both battlefield glory and shrewd governance. But fate, as it often does, had other plans. The news of Ella Amida's sudden death fell upon the kingdom like a thunderclap from a clear sky. Azana, still more boy than man, found himself thrust onto the throne of Axum. The crown sat heavy on his young brow, a physical reminder of responsibilities he was not yet ready to bear. In name, he was king, but the true power of rule passed into the hands of regents and advisors, who gathered around the royal seat like vultures circling prey. Among this circle of influence, one figure stood apart. Frumentius, a Christian scholar from the distant Eastern Roman Empire, had not come to Axum by choice, but by the capricious whims of the sea. Shipwrecked on Axum's shores, he had risen through wit and wisdom to become a trusted voice in the royal court. Now, as Azana's tutor and mentor, Frumentius saw an opportunity not just to shape a king, but to plant the seeds of a new faith in fertile soil. Let's pause here for a moment. The fire crackles softly, and we rest beneath the stars. In those early days of his reign, young Azana would have walked the narrow streets of Axum with eyes wide open, drinking in the sights and sounds of the kingdom he was destined to rule. The city was a tapestry of life and commerce. Stone houses standing shoulder to shoulder with market stalls groaning under the weight of salt blocks, exotic spices, and gleaming ivory tusks. The air was thick with the scent of incense and the chatter of a dozen languages, a reminder of Axum's place at the crossroads of trade. From the highlands came caravans laden with tribute, golden grain swaying in ox-drawn carts, proud cattle lowing as they were driven through the city gates. Their arrival was a tangible reminder of Axum's reach, of the vast territories that looked to the capital for leadership and protection. As Azana watched these processions, did he feel the weight of expectation settling on his shoulders like a physical thing? The young king's education was not confined to scrolls and lectures. Even as a boy, Azana began to accompany military expeditions, trading the comforts of the palace for the harsh realities of campaign life. The smell of wood smoke and leather, the rhythmic clash of sword on shield during training drills, these became as familiar to him as the chants of priests echoing off the granite walls of Axum's sanctuaries. These early forays into warfare were not the grand conquests of legend. They were small, necessary things. Skirmishes to protect vital trade routes, shows of force to remind restless provinces of Axum's might. Yet, in these modest campaigns, Azana began to learn the art of command. He watched seasoned generals deploy their forces, listened to scouts report on enemy movements, and felt the tension that hung in the air before battle was joined. Each experience was a lesson, honing the instincts of a ruler who would one day lead armies to far greater victories. Let's pause here for a moment. The fire crackles softly, and we rest beneath the stars. As the years passed, Azana grew from a wide-eyed boy into a young man with the bearing of a true king. His presence on the battlefield became more than symbolic. He was now a leader of men, his voice ringing out with authority as he directed troops and made crucial decisions in the heat of conflict. The soldiers who had once looked upon him with indulgence now gazed at their king with respect and loyalty burning in their eyes. Azana's education in statecraft continued apace, guided by the steady hand of Frumentius and the collective wisdom of Axum's noble houses. He learned to navigate the treacherous waters of diplomacy, to weigh the needs of the kingdom against the ambitions of powerful families, and to dispense justice with a firm but fair hand. The young king's mind was as sharp as any blade in Axum's armories, and he used it to cut through the tangles of court intrigue with increasing skill. Yet even as Azana grew into his role as ruler, the influence of Frumentius worked upon him like a subtle tide. The Christian faith that the tutor carried with him from the Eastern Roman world found fertile ground in the young king's curious mind. Azana listened with interest to tales of a single God, of miracles and martyrs, of a faith that promised salvation to all who embraced it. These ideas, so different from the traditional beliefs of Axum, began to take root in the soil of Azana's heart. The transformation was not sudden, nor was it without conflict. Axum's ancient gods had long held sway over the kingdom, their temples rising alongside the great stelae, their priests wielding considerable influence. Azana's growing interest in Christianity was met with suspicion by some, outright hostility by others. Yet the young king's position allowed him to explore these new ideas without fear of reprisal. And slowly, carefully, he began to consider how this foreign faith might shape the future of his realm. As Azana's reign progressed, his military campaigns grew bolder and more ambitious. No longer content with mere border skirmishes, the king set his sights on expanding Axum's influence far beyond its traditional boundaries. He led his armies south into the lands of Kush, west into the territories of rival kingdoms, and across the Red Sea to subdue rebellious vassals in Arabia. With each victory, Axum's power and prestige grew, and Azana's name became synonymous with conquest and glory. But even as he waged war, Azana never forgot the lessons of governance he had learned in his youth. He understood that true power lay not just in military might, but in the prosperity and loyalty of his people. The spoils of war were used to fund great building projects, new temples, expanded harbors, and mighty fortifications that would stand as testaments to Axum's greatness for generations to come. Let's pause here for a moment. The fire crackles softly, and we rest beneath the stars. As the years passed, Azana's reign became the stuff of legend. The boy who had once studied ancient inscriptions now commissioned his own grand declarations of victory and piety carved into stone for all to see. The languages he had learned as a child, Ge'ez and Greek, flowed from his pen as he corresponded with rulers from Rome to Persia, cementing Axum's place on the world stage. And through it all, the seeds planted by Frumentius continued to grow. Azana's embrace of Christianity was not just a personal choice, but a decision that would alter the course of Axum's history. The king's conversion marked the beginning of a new era for the kingdom, one that would see the old gods gradually give way to the cross, and Axum become a bastion of Christian faith in Africa. As we draw our tale to a close, we see Azana not as the wide-eyed boy he once was, but as a man tempered by experience, wisdom, and faith. The weight of the crown that had once seemed so heavy now rests easily upon his brow, a symbol of the journey from prince to king, from student to teacher, from conqueror to unifier. In Azana, we see the embodiment of Axum's greatness, a ruler who combined military prowess with diplomatic skill, who balanced tradition with innovation, and who led his people into a new age of faith and prosperity. The fire before us burns low, the stars wheel overhead, and the story of Azana, the boy who would be king, fades into the mists of history. But his legacy lives on, etched in stone, whispered in legend, a testament to the power of a single life to shape the destiny of nations. Azana's youth ended not with a quiet ceremony, but on the march. By his late teens, he was leading armies across the highlands and lowlands, determined to secure Axum's trade routes and extend its influence. His inscriptions, still carved into stone today, record victories over the Bija people to the north, whose control of desert passages threatened the empire's caravans. The campaigns were brutal. The Bija were fierce desert warriors, skilled in mounted combat, their camels able to cross vast stretches of arid land without water. Azana's army, marching from the green highlands into the harsh lowlands, faced searing heat and sudden sandstorms. Victories were won through persistence, establishing fortified posts along caravan routes, seizing wells, and integrating conquered communities into the empire's economic system. Picture, if you will, Axumite soldiers in linen tunics with leather belts and round shields advancing through a rocky desert pass. In the distance, mounted Bija warriors are silhouetted against the blazing sun, their forms shimmering in the heat haze. The clash of these two forces would shape the destiny of an empire. Let's pause here for a moment. The fire crackles softly, and we rest beneath the stars. The desert campaigns were but one facet of Azana's military ambitions. As the embers glow and night deepens around us, let us turn our gaze southward, toward the Agar and other highland groups whose lands were rich in grain and livestock. These were not distant enemies, but neighbors whose autonomy posed a challenge to Axum's authority. Here, the warfare was different, fought on steep mountain paths and narrow ridges, where ambushes could turn the tide in moments. Imagine the tension of Axumite soldiers navigating treacherous mountain passes, their eyes scanning the mist-shrouded peaks for signs of movement. The clash of steel would echo through deep valleys as Ozana's forces sought to bring these proud highland peoples under Axum's sway. His inscriptions speak with pride of these conquests, of binding these lands with tribute agreements and garrisons. The mountains yielded their bounty reluctantly, but yield they did. Fields of teff and barley, herds of cattle and goats, all now flowed into Axum's coffers, strengthening the empire's grip on the region. Yet, even as Ozana consolidated his hold on the highlands, his gaze turned eastward, toward the shimmering expanse of the Red Sea. Let's pause here for a moment. The fire crackles softly, and we rest beneath the stars. As dawn breaks over our campsite, imagine the salt-laden breeze carrying the sounds of bustling ports. For it was here, along the Red Sea coast, that Ozana launched perhaps his most far-reaching military action. Control of ports like Agilis meant dominance over international trade, and Ozana was determined to secure Axum's place as a commercial powerhouse. Ozana's fleets patrolled the waters, their triangular sails billowing in the wind as they approached the port of Agilis. On the docks, warehouses stood stacked with ivory tusks, frankincense, and amphorae of wine, a testament to the wealth flowing through Axum's grasp. Merchants from Arabia, India, and beyond paid duties to Axumite officials, their exotic wares mingling with the empire's exports. Gold, ivory, and exotic animals flowed outward. Textiles, wine, and glassware flowed inward. In the process, Axum became a linchpin in the commercial network linking Africa to Asia and Europe. The once small kingdom had transformed into a true empire, its influence stretching across seas and continents. Let's pause here for a moment. The fire crackles softly, and we rest beneath the stars. As night falls once more, consider the weight of empire resting on Ozana's shoulders. These conquests were not merely for glory. They secured the lifeblood of the empire, its trade routes, its sources of tribute, and its image as an unstoppable force. Each victory, each new territory brought under Axum's sway, was another thread in the tapestry of a growing civilization. Yet, even as Ozana built his reputation as a warrior king, another transformation was quietly underway, one that would change Axum's identity for centuries to come. The seeds of this change were already taking root, nurtured by influences from across the sea and whispered conversations in the royal court. As we sit here in the flickering firelight, let us reflect on the nature of power and change. Ozana's conquests had expanded Axum's borders, but they had also brought the empire into contact with new ideas, new beliefs. The warrior king stood at a crossroads, not just of trade routes, but of cultural exchange that would shape the future of his people. The night deepens and the stars wheel overhead. In the distance, perhaps we can hear the faint echo of marching feet, the clash of weapons, the chanting of priests. These are the sounds of an empire in transition, poised between its warrior past and an uncertain future. Let's pause here for a moment. The fire crackles softly, and we rest beneath the stars. Dawn breaks, and with it comes a new chapter in our tale. As Azana's reign progressed, the fruits of his conquests began to ripen. The empire's coffers swelled with tribute from conquered lands and taxes from bustling trade routes. Axum's cities grew, their markets filled with goods from distant shores. Temples and palaces rose, adorned with gold and precious stones, visible symbols of the empire's might. But with great power came great challenges. Administering such a vast territory required a complex bureaucracy, a network of governors and officials to collect taxes, maintain order, and represent the king's authority in far-flung provinces. Azana's inscriptions speak not just of military victories, but of the establishment of new administrative centers, the appointment of loyal subordinates to key positions. Imagine the bustle of Axum's royal court, where nobles and officials from across the empire gathered to seek the king's favor or plead their cases. Here, in halls of polished stone and carved wood, the future of nations was decided. Azana, once a young warrior leading troops into battle, now sat in judgment, weighing the delicate balance of power that held his empire together. Let's pause here for a moment. The fire crackles softly, and we rest beneath the stars. As our journey through Azana's reign nears its end, we must consider the legacy of the warrior king. His conquests had expanded Axum's borders to their greatest extent, securing vital trade routes and bringing new peoples under the empire's sway. But empires are not built on military might alone. Azana's true genius lay in his ability to forge these disparate conquests into a cohesive whole, to create an identity that transcended tribal and regional loyalties. The Axumite Empire under Azana became a melting pot of cultures, where Ethiopian highlanders mingled with Arab merchants, where Greek artisans worked alongside Nubian craftsmen. This diversity brought new ideas, new technologies, and new challenges. It was a time of great change, when ancient traditions clashed and merged with foreign influences. As the firelight fades and dawn approaches, we stand at the threshold of a new era for Axum. Azana's reign had laid the foundations for centuries of prosperity and power. But the warrior king's greatest battle, the struggle to shape the soul of his empire, was only just beginning. In the coming days, we will explore how Azana's military conquests gave way to a spiritual revolution that would forever alter the course of Axumite history. Let's pause here for a moment. The fire crackles softly, and we rest beneath the stars. As we conclude our tale of Azana, the warrior king, let us reflect on the nature of power and legacy. His conquests had secured Axum's place as a dominant force in the region, but they had also set in motion changes that would reshape the empire's very identity. The stage was set for a transformation that would echo through the centuries, influencing not just Axum, but the entire Horn of Africa. The fire dies down to embers, and the first light of dawn breaks over the horizon. Our journey through Azana's military campaigns comes to an end. But the story of Axum and the enduring impact of this warrior king's reign is far from over. In the days to come, we will explore how the seeds planted during these years of conquest would blossom into a new chapter for the Axumite Empire, one that would leave an indelible mark on history. As the sun dips below the horizon, casting long shadows across the ancient lands of Axum, we gather round the flickering flames of our campfire. The night air carries whispers of a time long past, when a young king stood at the crossroads of faith and tradition. Let us delve into the tale of Azana, the monarch. who would forever change the spiritual landscape of his kingdom. When Azana ascended to the throne of Axum, the realm was steeped in a rich tapestry of beliefs. Towering stone steely reached towards the heavens, silent sentinels honoring the departed. The names of gods, etched into unyielding granite, bore witness to centuries of devotion. Yet, even as the old ways held sway, a new current of thought was beginning to flow through the royal court. At the heart of this transformation stood Frumentius, once a tutor and now a bishop. During Azana's formative years, Frumentius had woven the teachings of Christian scripture into lessons of statecraft and diplomacy. Like seeds planted in fertile soil, these ideas took root in the young prince's mind, growing alongside his understanding of leadership and power. As Azana matured into his role as king, the influence of Frumentius's teachings became ever more apparent. In a move that would resonate through the ages, Azana made a bold declaration. Christianity would become the official religion of Axum. This was no mere personal revelation. It was a seismic shift that would reshape the very foundations of his kingdom. Let us pause for a moment, dear listeners. The fire crackles softly, and we rest beneath a canopy of stars, each one a witness to the unfolding drama of human history. Imagine, if you will, King Ozana, standing tall in his white and gold robes, a bronze cross held aloft in his hand. Beside him, Frumentius presents a parchment scroll, perhaps containing the words that would guide this new era. Behind them, a granite obelisk rises into the sky, a reminder of the old ways that would now coexist with the new. The ripples of change spread outward from the royal court, touching every aspect of Axumite life. The coins that once clinked in the pockets of merchants, bearing the crescent moon and disk of ancient deities, were now struck anew. The cross, symbol of the Christian faith, took its place on the kingdom's currency, a daily reminder of the spiritual revolution sweeping the land. Stonemasons and architects set to work, their chisels and hammers giving form to a new vision. Churches began to rise across the landscape, their designs a harmonious blend of local craftsmanship and influences from across the Red Sea. Within these sacred spaces, priests lifted their voices in prayer and song, using the ancient tongue of Ge'ez to bring the message of Christianity to both nobles and commoners alike. Let us pause once more as the fire dances and the stars wheel overhead. Can you hear the echoes of those long-ago voices, raised in praise and supplication? Azana's embrace of Christianity was more than a matter of personal faith. It was a calculated move on the grand chessboard of international politics. By aligning his kingdom with the powerful Christian world of the Eastern Roman Empire, Azana strengthened Axum's position on the world stage. The bustling port of Agilis and the highland markets became ever more welcoming to Roman traders, their wares and ideas flowing freely into the kingdom. Moreover, Axum's new Christian identity solidified its role as a protector of pilgrims and missionaries traversing the region. The kingdom became a beacon of faith, a safe haven for those seeking to spread the word of their God across the African continent and beyond. Picture, if you will, the scene in an Axumite mint. Artisans hunched over their workbenches in a shaded stone courtyard, carefully hammering out silver coins. On one side, the cross stands proud. On the other, intricate Ge'ez inscriptions tell of Azana's reign and the kingdom's new spiritual allegiance. Once more, we pause to catch our breath. The fire crackles softly, and we rest beneath the stars, each one a silent guardian of the stories that shape our world. Yet, even as Christianity took root in Oxium, the echoes of the past remained. The ancient obelisks still stood tall against the sky, their weathered faces a testament to the enduring spirit of the Axumite people. In the terraced fields that climbed the hillsides, farmers tended their crops as their ancestors had done for generations. And in the quiet corners of the kingdom, old traditions lived on, woven subtly into the fabric of daily life alongside the new faith. In this way, Azana forged a kingdom that was both ancient and renewed. The wealth brought by conquest now flowed alongside the unity inspired by shared belief. As the years passed and Azana's reign drew to a close, he had carved his name into the annals of history, not merely as a warrior king, but as a shepherd who had guided his people into a new spiritual era. The legacy of Azana's conversion would echo through the centuries, shaping the destiny of Axum and influencing the spread of Christianity across the African continent. His reign marked a pivotal moment when the cross and the crown became intertwined, forever altering the course of his kingdom and its place in the world. As our tale draws to a close, we sit in quiet contemplation. The fire has burned low, its embers glowing softly in the night. Above us, the stars continue their eternal dance, silent witnesses to the ebb and flow of empires and faiths. In the distance, perhaps we can hear the faint chiming of church bells, carried on the wind from some far-off Axumite town, a sound that would have been alien in Azana's youth, but which now forms the very heartbeat of his transformed kingdom. We have journeyed through time, dear listeners, to witness the moment when a young king's decision changed the course of history. As we prepare to leave this fireside and return to our own time, let us carry with us the lessons of Azana's reign. That change can come from unexpected places, that faith can shape nations, and that even in times of great transformation, the echoes of the past are never truly silenced. May the story of Azana and the kingdom of Axum inspire us to look at our own world with fresh eyes, to see the currents of change that flow beneath the surface of our daily lives. For who knows what seeds of transformation are being planted even now, waiting for the right moment to take root and flourish. And so, as the last embers of our fire fade and the first light of dawn begins to paint the eastern sky, we bid farewell to ancient Axum and its visionary king. The tale of the cross and the crown will live on, a testament to the enduring power of belief and the courage of those who dare to chart a new course for their people. In the heart of ancient Ethiopia, where the land rises gently into a sun-baked plateau, stand the enigmatic obelisks of Axum. These massive slabs of granite, shaped and carved with painstaking precision, pierce the sky like silent sentinels of a forgotten age. Known locally as Halti, these monumental stones have weathered centuries, their fluted sides and false windows etched by the patient hands of master masons long since turned to dust. To walk among these towering monoliths is to step into a forest of stone, where shadows fall like the memories of kings. Some reach heights rivaling a 12-story building, their imposing presence a testament to the ambition and skill of those who raised them. As you stand at their base, gazing upward, you can't help but feel a sense of reverence mingled with awe. Let's pause here for a moment. The fire crackles softly, and we rest beneath the stars. Cap-cut, prompt, towering 4th century Axumite obelisk in sunlight, with intricate carvings of windows and doors, locals in traditional white cotton shama passing by with baskets, goats grazing nearby. For the ancient Axumites, these were not mere decorations or idle displays of craftsmanship. Each obelisk marked the final resting place of the powerful kings, nobles, and elite families whose names may have faded from memory, but whose legacies still cast long shadows across the centuries. Every towering slab tells a story of ambition, of the desire to leave an indelible mark upon the world. The creation of these monuments was no small feat. Each obelisk began its journey miles away, hewn from a single massive block of granite. Imagine the Herculean effort required to transport these colossal stones across the rugged Ethiopian landscape. They were dragged, rolled, and hauled by countless hands, inching their way towards their final resting place. This wasn't just a display of brute strength, but a testament to the engineering knowledge passed down through generations. A fusion of raw manpower and sophisticated understanding of physics and mechanics. And yet, for all their grandeur, the true purpose of these obelisks remains shrouded in mystery and debate. Were they sacred monuments, their towering forms designed to guide the spirits of the departed into the afterlife? Did they serve as cosmic antennae, connecting the earthly realm of the Axumite kings to the divine powers above? Or were they, perhaps, something more mundane, yet no less impressive? Declarations of dominance carved in stone, ancient skyscrapers built to impress subjects and intimidate rivals. Some scholars, peering closely at the intricate carvings that adorn these monoliths, see something more than mere decoration. The false doors and windows etched into the granite might symbolize multi-story palaces for the dead, eternal homes crafted from unyielding stone. In this interpretation, each obelisk becomes a bridge between worlds, a place where the departed could dwell for eternity, their spirits housed in grand structures that mirrored the palaces they inhabited in life. Let's pause here for a moment. The fire crackles softly, and we rest beneath the stars. CapCut prompt: close-up of Axumite obelisk carvings, with weathered granite showing centuries of erosion, sunlight catching the edges of false windows. Other researchers, however, see a more earthly purpose in these towering monuments. To them, the obelisks of Axum are the propaganda of an empire writ large in granite. Each slab stands as a testament to the king's wealth, to the vast reach of his influence, and to his ability to command the labor of thousands. In a world where might often made right, what could be more impressive than the ability to move mountains and shape them to your will? The truth, as is often the case with artifacts from the distant past, likely lies somewhere between these interpretations. The obelisks of Axum were probably many things at once: sacred and profane, spiritual and political, deeply personal memorials and grand public statements. As you stand in their presence, feeling small beneath their weathered faces, it's impossible not to be struck by the strange blend of reverence and political theater they exude. These are monuments that speak to the eternal human desire to be remembered, to leave something behind that will outlast our brief mortal span. They remind us that in ancient Axum, as in so many cultures throughout history, power was measured not just in gold or armies, but in the ability to touch the sky with stone. Even in their current state, some fallen, others broken into pieces by the relentless march of time, the obelisks of Axum still command our awe and spark our imagination. They stand as a bridge between past and present, between the earthly and the divine. Each weathered carving, each massive slab of granite, tells a story of human ingenuity, ambition, and the eternal quest for meaning in the face of our own mortality. As the sun sets over the Ethiopian highlands, casting long shadows from these ancient sentinels, one can't help but wonder about the hands that shaped them, the minds that conceived them, and the society that valued them so highly. What dreams and fears, what hopes and aspirations did the Axumites pour into these enduring monuments? Let's pause here for a moment. The fire crackles softly, and we rest beneath the stars. The obelisks of Axum serve as a powerful reminder of the complexity of human culture and the many layers of meaning we imbue in our creations. They challenge us to look beyond the surface, to consider the multifaceted nature of power, belief, and legacy. In their silent majesty, they invite us to contemplate our own place in the grand tapestry of human history. As night falls and the stars emerge above the ancient stones, we're left with a sense of connection to those long-gone generations who gazed upon these same monuments. The questions they pondered about life, death, power, and the nature of the divine are not so different from our own. In the presence of the obelisks, we feel the weight of centuries and the enduring human drive to understand our place in the cosmos. Whether seen as sacred monuments guiding souls to the afterlife, or as grand political statements etched in stone, the obelisks of Axum continue to captivate and inspire. They stand as a testament to human achievement, to the power of belief, and to the enduring nature of our quest for meaning and remembrance. As we prepare to leave this ancient place, taking with us memories of towering stone and intricate carvings, we carry also a deeper appreciation for the complexities of human culture and the many ways we seek to leave our mark upon the world. The obelisks of Axum, touching the sky with their weathered peaks, remind us that our stories, our beliefs, and our aspirations can endure long after we are gone, speaking to future generations in a language of stone and shadow. The Axumite masons began their work far from the ceremonial fields, in granite quarries cut into the highland hills. There, the smell of dust and freshly chipped stone filled the air, mingling with the distant cores of hyraxes among the rocks. The quarrymen worked with iron chisels, pounding stones, and wooden wedges soaked in water. The swelling wood splitting the granite along its natural veins. From the first crack to the final polished surface, the process was as much art as industry. The sun had barely risen, casting long shadows across the quarry face. Skilled craftsmen, their hands calloused and strong, moved with practiced precision. Each strike of the chisel sent vibrations through the stone, a language only the most experienced could truly understand. The air was thick with anticipation, for today they would begin work on a monument that would stand for millennia. As the morning progressed, the rhythmic clink of metal on stone echoed through the hills. Sweat glistened on brows furrowed in concentration. The quarrymen worked in teams, their movements synchronized by years of shared labor. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the shape of the future obelisk began to emerge from the living rock. Capcut prompt, 4th century Axumite quarry scene. Men with iron chisels and wooden wedges prying granite slabs. Highland cliffs in the background under a golden sunrise. Let's pause here for a moment. The fire crackles softly, and we rest beneath the stars. As the night deepens, imagine the quarry silent and still. The tools lie abandoned, waiting for the dawn. In the flickering firelight, we can almost see the ghosts of those ancient craftsmen, their legacy etched in stone. The stars wheel overhead, the same stars that watched over the birth of empires and the fall of kings. With the first light of dawn, the quarry once again springs to life. The day's work begins anew, each man taking up his position with quiet determination. The sound of hammers and chisels fills the air, a symphony of human endeavor. As the sun climbs higher, the true scale of their task becomes apparent. Once the obelisk was freed from the bedrock, the challenge only grew. The block might weigh hundreds of tons, far beyond the capacity of any cart. Instead, teams of laborers, bound by royal command or tribute duty, laid out wooden rollers, greased with animal fat, and hauled the stone inch by inch using thick hemp ropes. Every turn of the roller was a heartbeat of the nation, the work punctuated by shouted commands and the rhythmic beat of drums to keep the pullers in unison. The procession moved with agonizing slowness, men strained against the ropes, their muscles bulging with effort. Sweat poured down their faces, mingling with the dust that rose in clouds from the dry earth. The drum beat steadily, its rhythm matching the labored breathing of the workers. With each heave, the massive stone inched forward, a testament to human perseverance and ingenuity. As they traversed the rugged landscape, the laborers faced constant challenges. Hills that seemed gentle from a distance became formidable obstacles. Ravines and gullies required careful navigation. At times, it seemed as though the very land itself resisted their efforts, unwilling to relinquish its hold on the stone that had been part of it for eons. Capcut prompt, large granite obelisk block on wooden rollers, teams of Axumite laborers pulling with ropes, a drummer beating time, dry grassland and scattered acacia trees in the distance. Let's pause here for a moment. The fire crackles softly, and we rest beneath the stars. In the quiet of the night, the enormity of their task settles over us like a blanket. The fire casts dancing shadows, and in its warm glow, we can almost see the faces of those long-ago laborers. Their determination, their pride, their hopes and fears, all etched in the firelight as surely as their work was etched in stone. As dawn breaks, we return to our tale. The journey continues, each day bringing new challenges and small triumphs. The obelisk moves ever closer to its final destination, a symbol of royal power and divine favor. The laborers, though exhausted, are buoyed by a sense of purpose. They know that their efforts will outlive them, that generations yet unborn will marvel at the fruit of their labor. Days turn to weeks, and weeks to months. The landscape changes as they progress, from rugged highlands to gentler slopes. The air grows warmer, heavy with the scent of acacia blossoms. Birds wheel overhead, their cries a counterpoint to the steady beat of the drum and the grunts of the straining workers. At last, after a journey that seemed endless, they arrive at the ceremonial fields. Here, where the earth meets the sky, the final and most perilous stage of their work begins. The air is charged with excitement and fear, for all know that one mistake now could undo years of effort. Raising the obelisk was the final and most dangerous act. Workers dug a deep pit for the base, then used earthen ramps, levers, and counterweights to tilt the massive stone upright. It was a slow dance with gravity. One misstep could send years of labor crashing to the ground. When the obelisk finally stood, its tip pointing heavenward, the crowd would erupt in cheers. The king's name carried on the wind. Some obelisks were crowned with a carved disc and crescent, symbols whose meanings are still argued over. Perhaps solar and lunar emblems binding the ruler to cosmic order. The preparation took days. The pit was dug with painstaking care, its depth and width calculated to the smallest measure. Ramps of packed earth rose on all sides, their slopes precisely engineered. Massive wooden levers were positioned, each one a tree trunk stripped and shaped for this singular purpose. As the moment of truth approached, a hush fell over the gathered crowd. The king himself was present, his gaze fixed on the prone obelisk. At a signal, the workers began to move. Ropes creaked, wood groaned, and the earth itself seemed to tremble as the massive stone began to shift. Inch by agonizing inch, the obelisk rose. Men strained at ropes and levers, their faces contorted with effort. Others carefully placed stones beneath the rising monolith, ensuring it would not slip back. The air was thick with tension, every breath held in anticipation. For hours, the work continued. The sun arced across the sky, its heat beating down on the laboring men. Sweat flowed freely, and more than one worker collapsed from exhaustion, only to be quickly replaced by another. Through it all, the obelisk continued its slow ascent. As the stone neared vertical, the most dangerous moment arrived. The slightest miscalculation now could send tons of granite crashing down, potentially killing dozens. The chief engineer, his face a mask of concentration, called out commands in a steady voice. Every eye was fixed on him. Every muscle tensed to respond instantly to his words. With a final, mighty heave, the obelisk settled into place. For a moment, silence reigned. Then, as the realization of their success dawned, a great cheer erupted from the crowd. Men wept openly, embracing their fellows in joy and relief. The king stepped forward, his face beaming with pride, to place his hand on the base of the towering monument. As the celebrations continued into the night, fires were lit and feasts prepared. The workers, their bodies aching but their hearts full, gathered to share tales of their long journey. Songs were sung, praising their strength and skill, and vowing that their deeds would be remembered for all time. In the flickering firelight, the newly raised obelisk cast a long shadow. Its polished surface gleamed, reflecting the starlight. At its peak, a disk and crescent, carefully carved and fitted, caught the moonlight, seeming to glow with an inner fire. What did these symbols mean? Were they, as some claimed, representations of the sun and moon, binding the king's rule to the very fabric of the cosmos? Or did they hold some deeper, more mysterious significance? As we sit here, centuries removed from that triumphant moment, we can only wonder. The fires of celebration have long since gone cold, the voices of those ancient workers silenced by time. Yet their work remains, a testament to human skill and determination. The obelisk still stands, its shadow still falls across the land, a bridge between earth and sky, past and present. Let's pause here for a moment. The fire crackles softly, and we rest beneath the stars. Long after the last mason's chisel fell silent, the obelisks of Axum remained alive in the minds of the people. Villagers whispered that the granite towers were more than mere markers for the dead. They were ladders for the soul. When an Axumite of noble birth was buried in the chamber beneath an obelisk, it was said that their spirit would climb its carved windows and doorways, rising step by step toward the sky. Each level represented a stage of the journey, from the shadowed halls of ancestors to the bright court of the gods. Let's pause here for a moment. The fire crackles softly, and we rest beneath the stars. Priests guarded these stones not as monuments, but as thresholds. They burned frankincense at their base, the resin's smoke believed to guide spirits home. During certain festivals, mourners brought offerings of beer, milk, and honey to feed the dead through the stone's invisible channels. To touch the base of an obelisk was to feel the pulse of one's lineage, the line of blood and spirit stretching back to the first kings. Let's pause here for a moment. The fire crackles softly, and we rest beneath the stars, but there was also fear. Some believed the obelisks held restless spirits, warriors who died with unfulfilled oaths, queens betrayed in court intrigue, rivals struck down before their time. These spirits, it was whispered, could descend the stone's path as easily as they ascended. For this reason, children were told never to play in the obelisk fields after dusk, lest they meet a pale figure who spoke in the voices of the long dead. In this blend of reverence and dread, the obelisks became more than propaganda or art. They were sentinels over the living and the dead alike. The night air grows chill, and we draw closer to the fire's warmth. Its light flickers across weathered faces, casting long shadows that dance with the tales of old. An elder, his eyes reflecting the flames, leans forward to speak of the obelisk's hidden power. In the time of our grandfathers' grandfathers, he begins, his voice low and measured. There lived a young prince named Ozana, proud and ambitious. He scoffed at the old ways, believing the obelisks to be nothing more than stone and chisel marks. The listeners lean in, their breath held captive by the story's pull. One night, driven by wine and youthful bravado, Ozana climbed the tallest obelisk. He shouted challenges to the ancestors, daring them to prove their existence. But as he neared the top, the stone beneath his hands grew warm, then hot. The carved symbols began to glow with an eerie light. Let's pause here for a moment. The fire crackles softly, and we rest beneath the stars. The elder's voice drops to a whisper, and the circle draws closer still. Ozana felt himself pulled into the stone, his body becoming mist. He traveled through countless lifetimes in an instant, the triumphs and sorrows of 100 generations flooding his mind. When dawn broke, the prince was found at the obelisk's base. His hair turned white, his eyes filled with a wisdom beyond his years. A murmur ripples through the gathering. The tale, though oft repeated, never fails to send a shiver down spines. From that day forward, the elder continues. Ozana ruled with compassion and foresight. He understood the weight of history, the interconnectedness of all things. The obelisks, he decreed, were to be honored not just as monuments, but as bridges between worlds. The fire pops and hisses, sending sparks skyward. In the silence that follows, each listener contemplates the unseen threads that bind them to past and future alike. Let's pause here for a moment. The fire crackles softly, and we rest beneath the stars. As the night deepens, talk turns to the rituals that have grown around the obelisks over centuries. A woman, her face lined with age and wisdom, speaks of the festival of Ascension. Once a year, she says, her voice carrying the weight of tradition. When the moon is full and the air is thick with the scent of jacaranda blossoms, we gather at the base of the great obelisk. From dusk till dawn, we sing the names of our ancestors, each syllable a step on their celestial journey. She describes how families bring tokens of remembrance. A warrior's spear, a scribe's quill, a child's favorite toy. These objects are arranged in intricate patterns around the obelisk's base, creating a map of memory and love. As the night wears on, she continues, the very air seems to shimmer. Some swear they can see faint outlines moving up the obelisk's face, pausing at each carved window as if to look back one last time. Let's pause here for a moment. The fire crackles softly, and we rest beneath the stars. A young man, his eyes wide with a mix of wonder and skepticism, raises a question that has long simmered in the minds of his generation. But how can we be sure? He asks. How do we know the obelisks truly hold such power? Perhaps they are just stone after all, and we have woven these tales to comfort ourselves in the face of death. The elder who spoke of Ozana regards the youth with a gentle smile. Ah, but that is the beauty and the mystery, young one. The power of the obelisks lies not just in the stone itself, but in the belief we pour into them. They are vessels for our hopes, our fears, our memories. He gestures to the stars above. Just as those distant lights guide sailors across vast oceans, so too do our stories and rituals guide us through the sea of time. The obelisks stand as anchors, reminding us of where we come from and who we might become. The fire casts dancing shadows across thoughtful faces. In this moment, past and present seem to merge, the weight of countless generations pressing in from all sides. Let's pause here for a moment. The fire crackles softly, and we rest beneath the stars. As the night wears on, conversation turns to the craftsman who created these enduring monuments. A stonemason, his hands calloused from years of work, speaks with reverence of his ancestors' skill. Each obelisk, he explains, was cut from a single piece of granite. The quarries lay miles from Axum, and moving such massive stones was a feat of engineering that still amazes us today. He describes the intricate process of carving, how apprentices would spend years learning to read the stone's grain, to coax form from unyielding rock. The most skilled artisans were said to hear whispers from the stone itself, guiding their chisels to reveal hidden beauty. But the true magic, the mason continues, his voice filled with wonder, came in the final stages. As the last details were carved, priests would perform sacred rites, imbuing the obelisk with spiritual power. It was believed that this ceremony awakened the stone, transforming it from mere monument to living conduit. Let's pause here for a moment. The fire crackles softly, and we rest beneath the stars. A scholar, her eyes bright with the passion of learning, adds her own perspective to the discussion. The obelisks were more than spiritual objects, she explains. They were also repositories of knowledge. The symbols carved into their faces told stories of great battles, recorded the lineages of kings, and preserved the wisdom of sages. She speaks of how each generation added its own layer of meaning to the stones, creating a palimpsest of history and myth. To truly read an obelisk was to unravel the complex tapestry of Axumite culture. In this way, she concludes, the obelisks served as both library and university. They were a constant presence, reminding the people of their heritage and inspiring them to add their own chapters to the ongoing story. As the fire burns low and the eastern sky begins to lighten, the gathering falls into a contemplative silence. Each person present feels the weight of history, the whispered voices of countless ancestors carried on the pre-dawn breeze. Let's pause here for a moment. The fire crackles softly, and we rest beneath the stars. In these final moments, before day breaks, there is a sense of having touched something profound, a connection to the eternal cycle of life, death, and remembrance. The obelisks of Axum stand as silent witnesses to this realization, their weathered faces holding secrets that will continue to captivate and inspire for generations to come. As we prepare to leave this circle of storytelling and return to the rhythms of daily life, we carry with us a renewed appreciation for the power of stone and symbol, of memory and belief. The obelisks remind us that we are all part of a greater story, our lives intertwined with those who came before and those yet to be born. The fire has burned to embers now, and the stars fade into the lightning sky. But the tales we've shared, like the obelisks themselves, will endure. Bridges spanning the gulf between past and future, between the seen and unseen worlds. As the first golden rays of dawn caressed the Ethiopian highlands, our Axumite merchant prince is already stirring from his slumber. His abode is no humble dwelling, but a grand mansion rising proudly against the sky. Its multiple stories crafted from sturdy timber and gleaming limestone. Delicate cotton awnings drape gracefully over ornate balconies, their woven patterns softening the harsh morning light. Within these opulent halls, servants move with practiced stealth, their footsteps barely a whisper on polished stone floors. They bear clay basins filled with warm water, its surface shimmering with aromatic oils of crushed basil and precious myrrh. The scent wafts through the air, a gentle awakening for the senses. Let us pause for a moment, dear listeners. Close your eyes and imagine this scene. The fire beside us crackles softly, its warmth a comforting presence as we rest beneath a canopy of twinkling stars. Can you picture the interior of this noble Axumite house? Early morning light streams through intricately carved windows, casting long shadows across richly woven rugs. A servant, clad in simple yet finely made linen, carefully pours water from a red clay jug into an ornate basin. Behind them, a wooden balcony stretches into the distance, its railings adorned with intricate carvings that speak of wealth and artistry. As we return to our tale, the merchant prince's courtyard comes alive with the bustle of a new day. The stables house magnificent steeds, their coats gleaming in the early light. These are no ordinary horses, but prized Arabian breeds, gifts from distant allies that speak of far-reaching connections and influence. Nearby, storehouses stand testament to the prince's vast mercantile empire. Their doors barely contain the treasures within. Bales of fragrant frankincense, massive ivory tusks that once graced mighty elephants, sacks overflowing with pungent pepper, and gleaming ingots of pure gold. Each item is destined for distant ports, carried by ship and caravan to the far corners of the known world. Our merchant prince does not dress in the simple white shama favored by common folk. No, his attire befits his status as a true power broker of Axum. Layer upon layer of fine cotton, each dyed the deepest shade of indigo, drape his form with regal elegance. At his neck, a golden torque gleams, its weight a constant reminder of his position. Every thread, every ornament speaks volumes about his place in Axum's complex social hierarchy. He is the vital link between the rarefied air of the king's court and the bustling, earthier world of Red Sea trade. Once more, let us pause and allow our minds to conjure this image. The fire beside us flickers, casting dancing shadows as we rest beneath the vast expanse of stars. Can you see the merchant prince as he stands before a polished bronze mirror? His fingers deftly adjust the golden torque at his throat, ensuring it sits just so against the rich indigo of his robes. Through an open doorway behind him, we catch glimpses of the courtyard beyond. Stables housing magnificent horses and pack animals being laden with precious goods for the day's journey. As the sun climbs higher in the sky, our merchant prince makes his way to his private lodger. This sheltered balcony offers a commanding view of Axum's central market, a vibrant tapestry of color and sound spread out below. Beyond the market, his keen eyes trace the road leading to Agelis, the port city that serves as Axum's pulsing commercial heart. It is along this very road that caravans will soon arrive, laden with goods from distant lands. The merchant prince's steward approaches, a man of sharp intellect and unwavering loyalty. In his hands, he carries the day's tally, a meticulous accounting of every transaction, every shipment, every potential opportunity. The prince listens intently as the steward outlines the day's expectations. Caravans from the mighty Nile are due to arrive, their pack animals burdened with sacks of life-giving wheat and ingots of gleaming copper. From the opposite direction, ships from Arabia will soon dock, their holds filled with luxurious textiles and amphorae of the finest wines. Each item, whether a humble grain of wheat or a priceless bolt of silk, is carefully weighed, its value assessed and noted. For the true art of the merchant prince lies not in mere possession of goods, but in the delicate dance of timing and trust. He must know when to hold, when to sell, and above all, how to cultivate the relationships that keep this vast network of trade flowing smoothly. Let us pause once more, allowing the crackling fire to soothe our senses as we gaze up at the star-studded sky. In your mind's eye, picture the loggia where our merchant prince stands. The early morning sun casts long shadows across intricately tiled floors. Before him stretches a panoramic view of Axum, the bustling market square below, the winding road to Agilis in the distance. Can you see the steward, his face etched with concentration as he delivers his report? Notice the merchant prince's posture, alert, engaged, his mind already weaving complex strategies from the threads of information before him. As the day truly begins to unfold, our merchant prince prepares to leave the sanctuary of his home. He will soon descend into the vibrant chaos of the marketplace, where his presence commands respect and his words can shape the fortunes of many. But before he steps into that world, he takes a moment to center himself. He breathes deeply, inhaling the mingled scents of incense, spices, and the promise of prosperity that hangs in the air of Axum. With a final adjustment of his indigo robes and a touch to the golden torque at his throat, the merchant prince of Axum strides purposefully towards the door. Today, like every day, he will navigate the complex currents of commerce and diplomacy. His decisions will ripple outward, affecting not just his own fortunes, but the very fabric of Axum's place in the wider world. As we conclude this glimpse into the morning routine of our Axumite merchant prince, let us take one last moment to reflect. The fire beside us has burned low, its embers glowing softly in the pre-dawn darkness. Above, the stars begin to fade as the first hints of a new day touch the eastern sky. We have witnessed the awakening of a man whose influence stretches far beyond the borders of his homeland. From the comfort of his opulent mansion to the bustling docks of Agilis, his reach is vast and his impact profound. Remember, dear listeners, that the tale of our merchant prince is but one thread in the rich tapestry of Axumite history. As we rest here beneath the fading stars, let your imagination wander to the countless other stories waiting to be told, of kings and commoners, of sailors and scholars, all playing their part in the grand saga of this ancient African kingdom. As the sun climbed to its zenith, the road to Agilis stretched before us like a shimmering mirage, a ribbon of heat dancing on the horizon. Our caravan, a serpentine line of camels and men, wound its way steadily towards the distant coast. The merchant prince rode at the head, his richly embroidered robes a stark contrast to the dusty landscape. Flanking him were spearmen, their bronze-studded leather armor glinting in the harsh light, ever vigilant against the threats that lurked in the barren expanse. Behind them came the scribes, their styluses scratching ceaselessly against wax tablets, recording every bundle of ivory, every sack of incense, every precious stone that made up our cargo. The air grew thick with salt, and the plaintive cries of gulls reached our ears long before the glittering expanse of the Red Sea came into view. Let's pause here for a moment. The fire crackles softly, and we rest beneath the stars. As we crested the final hill, Agilis revealed itself to us. A bustling tapestry of life and commerce sprawled along the coastline. This was no quiet fishing village, but a thriving nexus of trade, where the wealth of 3 continents converged in a cacophony of languages and a riot of colors. At the docks, Cushitic workers, their dark skin glistening with sweat, hauled great amphorae from the holds of newly arrived ships. Their muscles strained under the weight, feet finding purchase on the worn wooden planks as they navigated their precious cargo to shore. Nearby, Arab traders in flowing white thorbs gesticulated wildly, their voices rising and falling in the intricate dance of negotiation over sacks of pungent peppercorns. Indian sailors, their skin burnished by long days at sea, carefully unloaded ornate chests of sandalwood, the aromatic scent mingling with the salt air. Roman envoys, easily identifiable by their crimson-edged tunics, waited with barely concealed impatience beneath the shade of palm frond awnings, their eyes darting between the arriving ships and the goods being offloaded. The air was thick with an intoxicating blend of scents. The sharp tang of brine, the acrid smell of tar used to seal the ship's hulls, the heady aroma of exotic spices, and the ever-present musk of human toil. This, I realized, was the true perfume of empire, the essence of power and wealth distilled into a single, overwhelming sensory experience. Let's pause here for a moment. The fire crackles softly, and we rest beneath the stars. Our caravan made its way to the central wharf, where the merchant prince dismounted with fluid grace. His keen eyes swept over the scene, taking in every detail, assessing potential profits and pitfalls with the practiced ease of a seasoned trader. A group of porters approached, carefully bearing a shipment that had just arrived. Blocks of deep blue lapis lazuli, their rich hue a stark contrast to the sun-bleached wood of the dock. The merchant prince ran his fingers over the smooth surface of the stone, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. This precious cargo had traveled all the way from the distant mountains of Afghanistan, destined for the skilled hands of the royal jewelers. In his mind's eye, I could almost see him envisioning the exquisite pieces that would soon adorn the necks and fingers of Axum's nobility. Nearby, a cluster of scribes huddled around a makeshift table, their brows furrowed in concentration as they pressed intricate seals into soft clay tablets. Each stamp and signature fixed the terms of deals that would ripple across vast distances, shaping the fortunes of merchants and kingdoms alike. It was here, under the merciless glare of the midday sun and the watchful eye of the sea, that the true test of the merchant prince's acumen began. As we settled into the rhythm of the port, I found myself marveling at the sheer scale of the operation. Ships of all sizes crowded the harbor, their square sails furled as they rode at anchor. Some bore the distinctive high prows of Egyptian vessels, while others showed the sleek lines favored by Greek merchants. Each one represented a link in a vast chain of trade that stretched from the mist-shrouded forests of India to the sun-baked markets of Rome. The merchant prince moved through the crowd with purpose, stopping here to inspect a bale of fine silk, there to sample a handful of aromatic cloves. His every gesture was noted and mimicked by the coterie of lesser traders, who orbited him like moons around a planet, eager to glean some secret of his success. As the afternoon wore on, I found myself drawn to a group of pearl divers, who had just returned from the rich oyster beds that lay hidden beneath the waves. Their skin was weathered and salt-crusted, but their eyes shone with excitement as they displayed their whole, lustrous orbs that caught and held the light, promising untold wealth to those who could afford them. In a quieter corner of the port, I stumbled upon a different kind of transaction. A group of scholars, their robes marking them as men of learning from distant Alexandria, pored over a collection of scrolls with reverent care. These were not mere ledgers or shipping manifests, but repositories of knowledge, philosophical treatises, astronomical observations, and historical accounts that would soon make their way to the great libraries of the known world. As the sun began its slow descent towards the horizon, casting long shadows across the docks, the frenetic pace of commerce showed no signs of abating. If anything, the approaching night seemed to lend a sense of urgency to the proceedings. Deals that had been simmering all day were suddenly concluded with a flurry of handshakes and exchanged tokens. The merchant prince, his face etched with lines of satisfaction and fatigue in equal measure, finally called an end to the day's business. As we made our way to the compound where we would spend the night, the sounds of the port gradually faded, replaced by the gentler rhythms of evening, the call to prayer from a nearby mosque, the laughter of children playing in narrow streets, the sizzle of meat cooking over open fires. Later, as I lay on my pallet listening to the distant murmur of the sea, I reflected on all that I had witnessed. Adulis was more than just a port. It was a crucible where cultures met and mingled, where fortunes were made and lost in the blink of an eye, and where the very foundations of empires were laid one transaction at a time. In the morning, we would begin the journey back to Axum, our camels laden with new treasures and our minds filled with fresh knowledge. But for now, in the quiet of the night, I allowed myself to be lulled by the gentle lapping of waves against the shore, dreaming of distant lands and the endless possibilities that lay just beyond the horizon. Let's pause here for a moment. The fire crackles softly, and we rest beneath the stars. As dawn broke over Adulis, painting the sky in hues of pink and gold, the port stirred to life once more. The merchant prince, already awake and alert, stood at the edge of the compound, his gaze fixed on the harbor where ships were unfurling their sails, preparing for departure. Today would be a day of consolidation, of carefully packing our newly acquired treasures for the long journey home. The air was cooler now, a brief respite before the sun reasserted its dominance. As we made our way back to the docks, I noticed details that had escaped me in yesterday's frenzy. The intricate carvings on the lintels of merchant houses, the subtle gradations of color in the market awnings, the way the light caught the spray of waves breaking against the seawall. At the central wharf, a new shipment had arrived overnight. Crates of delicate glassware from the workshops of Syria, each piece a testament to the skill of its creator. The merchant prince examined them with a critical eye, negotiating terms with a fervor that belied the early hour. Nearby, a group of Axumite craftsmen huddled around a display of intricate metalwork, their fingers tracing the patterns as they discussed techniques and designs to bring back to their own forges. As the morning progressed, I found myself drawn to a secluded corner of the port where a different kind of exchange was taking place. Here, away from the clamor of commerce, a group of travelers swapped stories of their journeys, tales of treacherous mountain passes, of storms weathered at sea, of strange customs encountered in distant lands. Each narrative was a thread in the vast tapestry of human experience that Adulis helped to weave. Let's pause here for a moment. The fire crackles softly, and we rest beneath the stars. As the sun reached its zenith once more, casting its unforgiving light over the bustling port, our preparations for departure were nearly complete. The merchant prince stood at the head of our reassembled caravan, his face set with determination for the journey ahead. Behind him, our camels were laden with the fruits of our expedition. Rare spices, precious stones, finely woven textiles, and scrolls filled with knowledge from distant lands. As we turned our backs on Agellis and set our sights on the road to Axum, I couldn't help but feel a sense of anticipation. We carried with us not just physical goods, but ideas, innovations, and inspirations that would shape the future of our kingdom. In the dance of trade and diplomacy that played out on these shores, I had witnessed the pulse of history itself, the ebb and flow of cultures, the rise and fall of fortunes, and the endless human drive to explore, to learn, and to connect. The cry of gulls faded behind us as we climbed the coastal hills, the sea disappearing from view. Ahead lay days of travel through sun-baked landscapes, but the memory of Agellis, its sights, its sounds, its smells, would remain with us, a vibrant reminder of the world that lay beyond our borders and the endless possibilities that awaited those bold enough to seek them out. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the ancient city of Axum, a gentle breeze carried the scent of wild basil through the streets. The merchant prince's great hall stood as a beacon of warmth and hospitality, its carved ebony beams gleaming in the soft amber glow of oil lamps. Servants, clad in fine cotton tunics, moved with practiced grace, their footsteps silent on the polished stone floor as they arranged an array of delicacies upon long, low tables. Trays laden with honeyed dates, their golden skins glistening in the lamplight, sat alongside platters of roasted lamb, its rich aroma mingling with the earthy scent of lentils seasoned with cumin. The air hummed with anticipation as guests began to arrive, their voices a low murmur that grew steadily as the hall filled. Governors swept in, their embroidered cloaks catching the light, while poets from the royal court exchanged knowing glances, their fingers already itching to capture the night's events in verse. Merchants, their eyes bright with tales of distant lands, greeted old friends and rivals alike, each eager to share the stories of their latest journeys. Let's pause here for a moment. The fire crackles softly, and we rest beneath the stars. As the evening unfolded, it became clear that this was no ordinary feast. The banquet was a carefully orchestrated performance, a theater of tastes, sounds, and sights designed to captivate and enchant. A troupe of musicians took their places near the center of the hall, their masenkos cradled lovingly in their arms. With a nod from the merchant prince, they began to play, the one-stringed instruments weaving a tapestry of plaintive notes that hung in the air like incense. Between the haunting melodies, bursts of laughter erupted from the gathered guests, their joy as much a part of the evening's music as the instruments themselves. Dancers emerged from the shadows, their layered cotton skirts swirling around them as they began to move. Silver anklets chimed with each step, adding a delicate percussion to the masenko's song. The dancers spun slowly, their movements as fluid as water, telling ancient stories with every gesture and turn. As the first course was served, the merchant prince rose from his seat, his presence commanding immediate attention. With a voice as rich as the wines being poured, he began to recount his latest voyage. His words painted vivid pictures of storms that shook the Red Sea, waves as tall as mountains threatening to swallow his ship whole. He spoke of distant markets where Roman silver glittered in the sun, displayed alongside bars of Nubian gold that seemed to glow with an inner fire. The guests leaned in, captivated by every word, for in this great hall, Reputation was a currency as valuable as any precious metal or rare spice. Each phrase was carefully chosen, each pause perfectly timed to build suspense or allow a moment of reflection. The merchant prince was not merely telling a tale. He was weaving a spell, binding his listeners closer with every sentence. Let's pause here for a moment. The fire crackles softly, and we rest beneath the stars. As the night deepened, servants moved silently among the guests, refilling cups with wine from the northern vineyards. The rich, ruby liquid flowed freely, loosening tongues and warming hearts. The great hall grew warmer, not just from the bodies pressed close together, but from the spirit of camaraderie that filled the air. Songs rose spontaneously, old ballads of love and loss intermingling with newer compositions, praising the glory of Axum. In the flickering lamplight, the merchant prince's eyes gleamed with satisfaction. He understood, perhaps better than anyone in the room, that while his caravans and ships brought wealth to the empire, it was nights like this that truly secured his position. Here, in the warmth of good food and better company, alliances were forged and strengthened. Loyalty was inspired not through grand gestures, but through shared laughter and the simple act of breaking bread together. As he gazed around the room, the merchant prince could see his name being etched deeper into the living memory of Axum. Governors, who had arrived, stiff and formal, now clasped shoulders with poets, their faces flushed with wine and mirth. Rival merchants set aside their competition, if only for the night, united in their appreciation of the feast and the stories shared. Even the servants, moving efficiently through the crowd, carried themselves with pride, knowing they were part of something greater than themselves. Beyond the walls of the great hall, the night sky stretched vast and endless above the city. Stars twinkled like scattered diamonds, silent witnesses to the ebb and flow of empires. The cool highland air carried the distant sounds of the city, the bark of a dog, the laugh of a child not yet asleep, the soft footsteps of the night watch making their rounds. Under this celestial canopy, Axum thrived, its power and influence reaching far beyond its borders. As the feast began to wind down, guests reluctantly prepared to take their leave. The merchant prince stood at the entrance to the hall, bidding farewell to each with a warm smile and a word of thanks. Promises were made to meet again soon, to continue discussions started over cups of wine, to seal deals hinted at between courses. The night had been more than a simple gathering. It had been a reaffirmation of the bonds that held the empire together. The last guest departed, and the merchant prince turned back to survey the now quiet hall. Servants moved efficiently, clearing away the remnants of the feast, but the energy of the evening still lingered in the air. He smiled to himself, knowing that tomorrow word of the banquet would spread through the city and beyond. Tales of his generosity, his wisdom, and his connection to lands far and wide would grow with each retelling. As he prepared to retire for the night, the merchant prince paused at the threshold, looking out over the sleeping city. In the distance, he could just make out the silhouettes of the great, steely, ancient monuments to Axum's enduring power. He felt a swell of pride, knowing that in his own way, he was contributing to that legacy. With nights like this, he was ensuring that the empire would continue to flourish, its influence reaching across seas and deserts to touch the farthest corners of the known world. The stars continued their silent vigil as the last lamps were extinguished in the great hall. The scent of wild basil still hung faintly in the air, a reminder of the evening's beginning. As Axum slept, Dreams of far-off lands and grand adventures filled the minds of those who had attended the feast, and in those dreams the empire grew ever stronger, its future as bright and promising as the dawn that would soon break over the eastern horizon. The lamps have burned low, and the great baobab's shadow stretches long beneath the moonlight. We have walked the rocky fields with weary farmers, felt the weight of tribute in grain and sweat. We have stood beside King Azana, hearing the clash of battle and the softer whisper of scripture as faith reshaped a kingdom. We have wandered among the silent granite giants, wondering whether they spoke of the divine or merely of power, and we have reclined in the lamplight of a merchant prince's hall, where wine flowed and stories bound strangers into kin. Let's pause here for a moment. The fire crackles softly, and we rest beneath the stars. The empire of Axum rose and fell, as all empires do. Its ports quieted, its monuments weathered, its royal lines faded into history's mist. But in the wind that sweeps across the steely field, in the cool shadow of the highlands, and in the stories we carry, its heartbeat still lingers. Perhaps it reminds us that greatness is not measured by how long we endure, but by the echoes we leave in stone, faith and memory. As we sit here in the gentle embrace of the African night, let us reflect on the journey we've taken through time and legend. The air is thick with the scent of acacia and the distant murmur of nocturnal creatures. Our path has wound through centuries, each step revealing another layer of Axum's rich tapestry. We've seen the glint of gold in ancient harbors, where ships from distant lands once docked, laden with spices and silks. We've heard the chants of priests in hidden monasteries, their voices carrying the weight of sacred texts preserved through ages. We've felt the rough-hewn stone of stele beneath our fingertips, each groove a testament to the skill of forgotten artisans. In the flickering firelight, faces both familiar and strange dance before our eyes. There's the merchant from Arabia, his eyes alight with tales of perilous sea voyages. Beside him sits a scribe, fingers stained with ink, guardian of Axum's written legacy. A warrior leans forward, scars telling silent stories of battles won and lost in the name of empire. And there, in the shadows, we glimpse the fleeting form of a queen, perhaps the legendary Makeda herself, whose journey to Jerusalem became the stuff of legend. Her presence reminds us that Axum's influence stretched far beyond its borders, weaving itself into the myths and histories of lands both near and far. The night deepens, and with it comes a sense of reverence for all we've witnessed. We've seen an empire born from the red earth of Ethiopia, nurtured by the Blue Nile and the fierce pride of its people. We've watched it grow, embracing new faiths and forging alliances that would shape the Horn of Africa for millennia to come. But empires, like the great baobabs that dot this landscape, have their seasons. Axum's autumn came slowly, almost imperceptibly. Trade routes shifted, new powers rose, and the world that once revolved around this highland kingdom began to look elsewhere. Yet even in decline, Axum left indelible marks upon the land and its people. In the churches carved from living rock at Lalibela, we see the enduring legacy of Axumite faith and craftsmanship. In the complex scripts of Gias, we find the echoes of a literary tradition that flourished in Axum's golden age. And in the faces of the people we've met on our journey, farmers, merchants, priests, we recognize the resilience and pride that once built an empire and now preserves its memory. As the embers of our fire fade to a soft glow, we turn our gaze to the future. What lessons does Oxium hold for those who come after? Perhaps it's the understanding that true greatness lies not in conquest alone, but in the synthesis of cultures, the preservation of knowledge, and the creation of works that outlast their creators. Or maybe it's simpler than that. Maybe Axum's greatest gift is the reminder that all things pass, but beauty and wonder endure. In the cool pre-dawn air, we can almost hear the whispers of those who came before us, urging us to build, to create, to leave our own marks upon the world. The sky begins to lighten, the first tentative rays of sun touching the ancient stele. Soon, the modern world will reassert itself with its noise and haste. But for now, in this liminal space between night and day, past and present, we are part of something greater. We are the latest in a long line of dreamers and storytellers, keeping the flame of memory alive. You are under baobab skies. And now, we close our eyes and let the echoes of Axum guide us into dreams.